Hey there, this is the Penny on Your Thoughts podcast, and I am your host, Penny Chason. I'm a board-certified hypnotist, intuitive, and experiencer. This podcast is about tapping into your subconscious to create a more aligned and abundant life. By leveraging our subconscious, we can master our thoughts, frequency, and vibration. Fusing the conscious, subconscious, and our consciousness is the science of expansion and soul satisfaction. Each week, I'll share in-depth interviews or solo episodes. This podcast was created to share how you have the power to create infinite potential within you. It's my intention that you find this podcast empowering, inspiring, and full of possibility. Now grab your favorite beverage and let's go. Hey, beautiful souls. Let's talk a little bit about limiting beliefs because, hey, babe, we've all got them. We all have limiting beliefs. Sometimes we just notice them in passing and, that was curious. And then other times they're like a speed bump in the road that we have to navigate. And sometimes they feel like a freaking wall. And that is just the reality of the way that limiting beliefs work. But there is a process that you can go through to address these limiting beliefs that can become a part of your way of being so that you stay on top of these things before they become an issue. Now, I'm going to be full transparency here. Some limiting beliefs from the beginning are deeply rooted. And these initial things that I share with you may not be that effective. However, as you work through that process and they're not that effective, that's actually your sign that this is something that you need to do the deeper work on. So when I work with clients, my biggest priority is empowering them to learn to be able to look at their thoughts and observe them and to be in a place that they're empowered to notice a fleeting thought versus, oh, this is something I need to address. Let me reach out to Penny on Boxer or let me book another call. Because while I would love to have clients for life, and I do have clients who work with me long term, my goal is to not have someone be dependent on me. I want to foster the autonomy and the independence. And if someone wants to continue working with me, then I love to have them there when they're wanting to just continue to peel back the layers and address the things that come up and not get slowed down when mindset issues come up. So instead of that speed bump feeling like a wall, we can just move right through it. Here's the process. And I don't necessarily teach it as a process. This is integrated in our conversations and our meetings with the client. But when we notice limiting beliefs pop up, the first thing is being aware of it. And sometimes we have blind spots and we're not aware of those limiting beliefs. But when you're looking at something, you're like, I'm not really, things aren't moving the way I wanted. I'm not seeing the opportunities I wanted to see, or business isn't progressing, or my relationship's not progressing the way that I would like it to. And you start thinking to yourself, I have a limiting belief. That is the first limiting belief I want you to shift. Not, I have a limiting belief. Don't own that damn thing. You don't want to own it. Nobody wants to own a limiting belief. What you want to do is say, oh, I noticed a limiting belief there. I noticed a limiting thought. Right? You noticed it. Don't own it. That's the first thing to reframe. But when you see this belief or perception, whatever it is, we want to reframe that into the positive. A lot of people who work in businesses, if they work in STEM, when we're putting things in place and we need to achieve a certain outcome, we go in and we look at those things and we look for the places where things could go wrong so we can prevent a problem. It's preventative troubleshooting. Where I've seen people not even, they innocently did this. They didn't even realize it. That thinking translated into their everyday life. So instead of looking at life as what's possible, they started looking at life as what could go wrong. Because within their business, looking for the things that could go wrong so they could prevent them equaled success. But in our personal life, when we start looking for things that could go wrong, that's a big problem. So if you're someone who in your self talk, you catch yourself going, well, what if this happens? And what if that happens? And the what if is something negative, that's something to shift immediately. Immediately. Don't do that another day. Now, are you going to flip this habit like a switch? Probably not. So have grace with yourself. The key is to notice it. And when you notice it, instead of getting frustrated and aggravated with yourself, which creates emotions that reinforce it, you're going to say, well, what if everything does work out? What if this merger does go through? What if I'm able to train in hypnosis and transition out of corporate? What if everything works out and I am able to do something that makes me feel good as a person and that I'm making a difference in the world? What if it does all work out? Okay. Shift that what if. Now, the other pieces of the self talk, the other pieces, whatever it is that you're saying yourself, you want to reframe it to positive. We are where our attention is. And people often say, well, what does that even mean? Our mind filters information. And the most important information our mind receives is what we feed it. So the things that we're thinking, the things that we're saying to ourselves, the things that we're saying to other people, we're feeding that back into our mind. And it puts the majority of its attention on that. So if the majority of our talk and the way that we talk to and about other people and situations, if the majority of all of that is negative, then our brain is going to perceive things from the negative. So we need to pick an area and start to shift that to positive, shift that to the glass is half full. That what if this great thing does work out? And instead of saying something like losing weight is hard, saying something like, you know what, I'm really happy I have this opportunity to help my body get healthy. That is a simple shift. And we can have appreciation for helping our body to get healthy. It doesn't seem like some far fetched goal like losing 50, 75, 80, 100 pounds. If you're in that situation, being grateful to have the opportunity to help your body get healthy, that feels believable. It feels doable. And that leads into my next piece of this first step in the process is with affirmations. When you're doing affirmations, people say, oh, don't make your dreams realistic, make them unrealistic. Yes, I totally agree. We want to have unrealistic expectations. We want to have stretch goals. But if we start our affirmations with, I'm 105-pound world class bodybuilder, and that means you have to lose 105 pounds to get there, your brain immediately goes, you are jacked up on crack or something. That's what the mind's going to do. It doesn't believe it. So we start those affirmations with something believable, like, I'm so grateful I have this opportunity to help my body to get fit. I am so grateful I have all these healthy vegetables to eat. I am so grateful that I have found a personal trainer who is going to help me tone up my body. And we build on those things. If this relates to you in business, say you're making a transition out of corporate and you want to be a coach, or you're transitioning out of corporate and you want to be an artist, or you're transitioning out of corporate and you want to be a hypnotist, that's my bias, okay? Or healthcare or any other, because that was my transition out of healthcare. If you're wanting to make a big transition and you've never worked for yourself, you've never given yourself permission to follow your dreams and to have it all be on you, there's a huge gap of evidence that it's possible. So you start out by being grateful for the opportunity to do this thing. I'm grateful for the opportunity to leave corporate and to be able to follow my passion of painting. People love my paintings everywhere I go. I am inspired to paint masterpieces. And then you build up to my paintings are highly sought after. My paintings bring top dollar. So you build up to that. You don't start with that. And when I say you build up to that, I'm not talking about over a period of weeks. I'm talking about in your list of affirmations. Start very general and go very specific. Now, if you notice that you're getting a lot of mental pushback on your affirmations, your limiting belief or this negative self-talk that you're dealing with, it might actually run pretty deep. So if you're getting a lot of mental pushback, the next step is to go to YouTube and find yourself some hypnosis audios or learn to do self hypnosis. Or you could sign up for my audio vault. I have a Catalyst hypnosis audio vault. It's all around emotional release, business mindset, confidence building, stress release. You want to get into a state where your conscious analytical mind isn't going to throw up the flag and say, no, we're not going there. We're going to stay where we are. You want to use hypnosis to bypass that critical analytical thinking part of the mind. Now, when you use hypnosis audios or you do self hypnosis, it is a slower, steadier process. You are going to want to do things on repeat because what you're doing is you're rebuilding new pathways that you want to increase in importance over the old pathways, right? So with this style of hypnosis, we're not necessarily breaking beliefs, though it is possible and it does happen spontaneously. We create the opportunity for that to happen within the mind. But self-hypnosis, hypnosis audios, classical hypnosis, that requires repetition because you're building new neural pathways. If that helps you some, but you notice you're still getting triggered, the limiting belief is still there, you're still getting pushed back, you're able to move forward a little bit further than you were before, but you find yourself getting caught up with this limiting belief still. That does not mean that the hypnosis isn't working. It means you need a more directed approach. You might need a root cause approach, and there are a few different root cause approaches that I use, one that I teach in my hypnosis certification training, and the other one being conversational hypnosis, which is really valuable when you already have that foundation of how the subconscious actually works. Because sometimes these limiting beliefs are tied to trauma. Sometimes they're tied to repetitive reinforcement of what others expect of us as we're growing up. I was working with someone in their entire life. One of their parents was someone who lived in constant fear. So every time they went out the door, be careful of this, watch out for that. This bad thing may happen, that bad thing might happen. So every time this person wanted, as a child and as a teen, every time they wanted to try something exciting and new, they constantly heard, you better be afraid of that. You better watch out. Something bad is going to happen. So what happened was the fear that something bad was going to happen got attached to their judgment of whether or not what they wanted was safe. It's like a micro trauma repetitively reinforced. But then to give you yet another example, I have worked with people who had an experience in their adult life. And within that, there was emotion. And subconsciously, their mind sees the situation and it's like, you know what, this is important to me, this connection is important to me, this remembrance is important to me, what this person taught me is important to me. And then down the road they're living life and they go to make a decision and they start to doubt themselves, and then they make another decision and they doubt themselves again. And what we uncovered in this process of doubt that they were experiencing, there wasn't a limiting belief there. But what happened was their mind saw the decisions that they were making to be out of alignment with another person's point of view. And they highly valued their relationship with this other person. They highly valued the relationship with this other person. So when this opportunity came along and they took advantage of this opportunity, which was in total alignment with who they are and what they want to do, they were immediately getting this pushback and guilt that they shouldn't have done it. And when we went in and took a look at it, we broke through this in our first call because we did a lot of deep work. It actually had to do with the fact that the choice they made was not something this relationship that they valued so much, it wasn't something that this person would have done. So there was a part of them that felt like they were dishonoring the relationship with this other person by making this decision, and they felt guilty about it. And it was significantly impacting their business. And we moved right through that. Why do I share that? What even makes that important? And I know I'm being vague, and I'm being vague intentionally around that. I don't like to give specifics sometimes. I share that because we have to break this idea that all limiting beliefs are tied to trauma. We have to break this idea that, something happened in our past to cause a limiting belief. Sometimes it's not a limiting belief, sometimes it's a misalignment of our values, and our values drive our choices. And this is the benefit of working with someone who exclusively works with the subconscious paradigms and paradoxes that come up on a personal evolution journey, because there's a deeper understanding that it's not just limiting beliefs, it's not just trauma. You don't need to do age regression for everything. You don't need to go dig things up that may not even be a problem. And that's one of the things that's beautiful about the hypnosis certification training that I have coming up. If you are someone who wants to help people to expand beyond their limiting beliefs, to create a life that's amazing beyond their wildest dreams, to simply be happier, to be more fulfilled, to break the habits and behaviors that are holding them back. Or maybe you want to work with people who have physical issues. Hypnosis is great for physical issues. There's a video that I have of Christy over on YouTube. We'll link it in the show notes. I worked with Christy for confidence to overcome fear of falling. And a year ago, when they reached out to me, 1 year ago, when they reached out to me, she didn't even want to get dressed, get out of bed, get into a wheelchair. Now she will walk on a treadmill. She has learned to walk up and down stairs. She's made huge progress, and it all came back to her self belief and confidence in herself, what she believed was possible. So I will link that video. The video was made in May of last year, and she's actually come a long way, but you will see what just 3 sessions around confidence did for her. And we didn't use any of the deep directed techniques. I used a combination of a classical hypnosis approach and a self hypnosis that does that deeper clearing automatically without having to bring things up. And these are things that I teach in the training. So if you've been wanting to help other people, you've been uncertain how you want to do that, but hypnosis has been something that's interesting, and you're asking yourself, should I be a hypnotist? Should I be a hypnotherapist? I want you to go to my information page, because I answer those questions. And there are some things that when you train with me that you're going to get access to that a lot of people don't offer. You get access to a Facebook group during the training so that I can support you in the self-study and so that you feel really solid around the basic portion of the training before we ever start the live training. When you graduate, you get access to another Facebook group where I support graduates in refining and continuing to learn the skills of hypnosis and how to address different types of clients. People will come in there and ask the questions like, hey, this person reached out for me for hypnosis. They listed off these issues. We talked. This is their history. And there have been times where I point blank said that, you know what, as a newer hypnotist, you might not want this to be your first client. And here's why. And I outline it for them. I help people to understand who they're working with and the things that they can anticipate that might come up so they can choose if a client's the right client. All the videos, all the posts are there for you to go through and look at and to read and to learn from. Then there's also a hypnosis resource library. I do not charge a membership fee for you to have access to this resource library. And it's to support you in your practice. I would love to see you there if this is something that you feel called to do. If you're unsure if hypnosis is right for you, there is a link on the page to book a Q&A call, and you can ask me your questions. I'll be more than happy to answer them because I only want you in my training if it feels like something that is aligned and right for you to do. We start onboarding in just a couple of weeks for the self-study. Now you can register up until mid-February, but the earlier you register, the longer you have access to the self-study, and you can really take your time. You can watch the videos multiple times, whatever it is that you choose to do to feel best prepared for the live training. The live training is at the end of February. All the details are on the registration page. The link will be in the show notes, or you can go to pennychason.com/certify me. Begin taming the inner critic and increasing your confidence today. If you're like most people in my audience, you are successful and you know what it means to have a success mindset. Affirmations, journaling, and meditation are all great practices. But sometimes when things come up, we need to go a little bit deeper, because to continue to only do affirmations or journaling is like putting a Band-Aid on a broken arm. So what we want to do is uncover what is going on underneath the surface. If you would like to know 2 key questions that I ask myself so that I can uncover hidden limiting beliefs and begin to reframe them, then I want you to go over to the website pennychason.com/myth and get your copy of the Mindset Myth, where I share with you these 2 questions that will help to bring you the awareness that will allow you to reframe and break the habit of thinking that is your inner critic. Now, if you've enjoyed this episode of Penny on Your Thoughts, please screenshot this episode and share it to Instagram and tag me, or head over to Apple Podcasts and leave a positive review. Thank you for listening, and I'll see you next week.